US strike cripples Iran Navy. US destroys Iran's drone mothership in Gulf strike amid escalating Middle East war. In a dramatic escalation of tensions in the Middle East, the United States has destroyed Iran's target warship, the Shahid Bagheri, a converted drone mothership used by Tehran to launch aerial attacks on Western allies and American military bases. Now it's time to go in detail and uncover the full story in today's AI podcast.
Welcome in, and thank you for joining us for another deep dive.
Glad to be here.
We know that you, the learner, are always looking to, make sense of this rapidly shifting geopolitical landscape.
Right.
And today we have a massive stack of real-time intelligence, military briefings, and diplomatic cables sitting right here in front of us.
It's quite a stack.
Yeah, it really is. We are looking at a sudden, explosive escalation in the Middle East. Specifically, we're tracking a sweeping U.S. military campaign that's been dubbed Operation Epic Fury.
And it is a staggering amount of data to process. I mean, particularly given the unprecedented operational tempo we're seeing on the global stage right now.
Definitely.
The sheer velocity of these developments is, well, it's something we rarely witness outside of major historical inflection points.
Exactly. And before we get into the tactical weeds, I really want to set the ground rules for our deep dive today.
Good idea.
Because when you are analyzing military operations of this magnitude, the headlines naturally get loud, they get chaotic, and frankly, highly polarized.
Oh, absolutely. The noise can be deafening.
So our entire mission today is to look at the facts, the strategic maneuvers, and the raw intelligence completely objectively.
Right, just the data.
Exactly. We are stripping away the political noise. We aren't here to take sides or endorse any specific foreign policy. We're simply here to understand the mechanics and the sheer scale of this conflict based on the immediate reports from the ground, the air, and the sea.
And that is absolutely the most effective way to process a structural shift of this magnitude. You really have to look at the kinetic reality of the battlefield and the diplomatic signaling happening concurrently without letting bias get in the way.
And the reality we're looking at is complex. I mean, our stack of material today covers a fundamental shift in naval warfare, incredibly high-profile leadership casualties, and a wave of regional contagion that's crossing multiple sovereign borders.
It's a lot of moving parts.
It is. We are going to synthesize statements from Central Command, casualty metrics from regional humanitarian organizations, and the official declarations coming out of both Washington and Tehran.
It's an intricate web of cause and effect.
Yeah.
And honestly, if analyzing all of these overlapping crisis points makes you feel a bit overwhelmed right now,
Which it probably does.
yeah, that is an entirely rational response to the density of this intelligence.
I feel it too, honestly. Keeping up with these rapid multi-domain conflicts is a lot, but I promise you, we're going to break this down logically.
Step by step.
Right. We're going to take it piece by piece, from the strategic choke points of the Gulf of Oman to the airstrips in Beirut, and figure out exactly what the data is telling us about the future of international security. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's begin with the initial kinetic strike of this campaign.
Right.
Because it really establishes the technological baseline for everything we're seeing unfold.
Right. So the briefings detail the destruction of Iran's largest drone-carrying warship. It's called the Shahid Bagheri. The United States Central Command, or CNTCOM, reported that this vessel was targeted and struck within the opening hours of Operation Epic Fury.
A very decisive opening move.
Very. But the naval architecture of this ship is what really caught my eye in these reports. This was not a traditional, keel-up military warship.
Not at all.
It was originally a standard commercial vessel.
What's fascinating here is the absolute shift in asymmetric force projection that the Shahid Bagheri represented.
Yeah.
You take a commercial vessel, which is essentially a massive, slow-moving civilian cargo hull, and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy retrofits it into a military platform.
It's wild.
They took this civilian logistics ship in 2022 and converted it into a forward operating base for asymmetric warfare.
The dimensions in the CNCOM briefing are just incredible. They welded a 180-meter flight deck onto this thing.
A massive surface area.
Right. They outfitted it with extensive launch and recovery facilities for fixed-wing unmanned aerial vehicles, added helicopter launch capabilities, and bolted on medium-range air defense systems.
It's quite the engineering feat, honestly.
According to the U.S. defense officials cited in our stack, this floating drone base wasn't just some prototype. It was an active staging ground for operations targeting American military installations and allied positions across the region.
We really need to look at the cost-benefit analysis here because that is the essence of asymmetric warfare.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, you're talking about a fundamental disruption in naval economics. Instead of spending $10 billion in 15 years constructing a traditional nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, a state actor retrofits a commercial ship for a fraction of the cost to launch swarms of relatively cheap, highly lethal drones.
Right, the drones are practically disposable in comparison.
Exactly. A $20,000 drone can threaten multi-billion-dollar assets. It's a completely different doctrine for projecting power across a maritime choke point. So taking that piece off the board early was a massive strategic imperative for the U.S.
But the destruction of the Shahid Bagheri immediately triggered a massive clash of narratives. Which brings us to the information war happening parallel to the kinetic one.
They always run side by side.
According to the regional reports, Iran's Revolutionary Guard publicly claimed that in direct retaliation, they struck the USS Abraham Lincoln with 4 ballistic missiles and sank it.
And this is where we have to analyze how both sides are utilizing the information space.
Yeah.
The IRGC claiming a monumental naval victory like sinking a U.S. Nimitz-class aircraft carrier would be, if true, an earth-shattering military event.
To say the least.
It would alter the global balance of power overnight.
Wait, I have to jump in here because that claim immediately jumped out at me as completely surreal.
Oh, sure.
You cannot just hide a 100,000-ton aircraft carrier going down to the bottom of the ocean.
No, you really can't.
There are commercial satellites monitoring that airspace 24/7, not to mention allied shipping in the area. How does the IRGC expect the international community to actually buy that narrative?
They don't. And that is a crucial insight into modern information warfare.
Okay.
The target audience for that specific claim likely isn't Western intelligence agencies or global defense analysts who have access to real-time satellite imagery.
Then who is it for?
The target audience is domestic. It's about maintaining internal morale, projecting strength to regional proxy forces, and creating enough temporary ambiguity in the local media ecosystem to control the news cycle for a few crucial hours.
That makes a lot of sense. And CENTCOM obviously didn't let that ambiguity sit. The Pentagon's response was incredibly blunt.
Very swift.
The briefing flatly denied the claim. They stated the Lincoln was not hit. The missiles launched didn't even come close. They confirmed the carrier group remains fully operational and is actively participating in the ongoing campaign.
But notice how CENTCOM addressed it. They didn't just issue a standard denial. They aggressively called out what they termed the Iranian regime's false messaging machine.
Right, they really went on the offensive there.
They categorically stated that the only carrier resting at the bottom of the ocean is the Shahid Bagheri.
Wow.
This is a textbook case study in multi-domain conflict. Establishing the narrative of operational supremacy is treated with the exact same urgency as neutralizing a physical target. If you lose the information space, you risk emboldening adversaries regardless of what is actually happening on the water.
Speaking of what is actually happening on the water, let's look at the naval engagements that followed. Because the Pentagon data here is staggering regarding the operations in the Gulf of Oman.
The operational tempo required to achieve the metrics listed in these reports is severe.
The U.S. Defense Declaration states that American forces destroyed 11 Iranian naval vessels in the Gulf of Oman. I want to read the exact phrasing from the briefing because it really underscores the scale here.
Go for it.
Quote, 2 days ago, the Iranian regime had 11 ships in the Gulf of Oman. Today, they have 0. 11 to 0 in 48 hours.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to recognize that an 11-ship wipeout in 2 days, practically, has no modern historical precedent outside of major declared global conflicts.
Right.
But we also have to look at the geography. Why the Gulf of Oman? This isn't just a random theater of operation.
Oh, it's highly strategic.
The Gulf of Oman feeds directly into the Strait of Hormuz. It is one of the most vital, congested, and vulnerable maritime arteries on the planet.
And Washington explicitly framed this kinetic action as a defense of maritime navigation. They accused Tehran of utilizing those naval assets to systematically harass international shipping routes for decades.
Exactly. I want you, the listener, to think about the vulnerability of those specific shipping lanes to the kind of asymmetric drone swarms we were just talking about.
It's a huge risk.
This isn't just about regional geopolitics. This impacts the underlying stability of the global economy. A massive percentage of the world's daily oil consumption, liquefied natural gas, and commercial freight physically sails through that extremely narrow choke point.
So a disruption there is felt everywhere.
Immediately. When insurance premiums for oil tankers skyrocket because of regional harassment, that cost hits global energy markets the very same day.
Yeah.
By erasing an 11-ship naval presence in that specific sector, the U.S. isn't just engaging a military target. They are sending a definitive signal to global markets about securing those vital maritime choke points.
But as we analyze this massive projection of force, we have to look at the severe human cost on the ground. The scale of the strikes detailed in these intelligence summaries points to a devastating toll. And it has triggered a massive leadership vacuum.
The geopolitical ramifications of this next data point cannot be overstated. We are looking at a profound, sudden structural shift within the Iranian state.
The intelligence confirms a geopolitical earthquake. The death of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei.
Yes.
The reports verify his death following a series of intense weekend bombardments involving combined U.S. and Israeli missile strikes inside Iranian territory.
A sudden decapitation of leadership at that level is a paradigm-shifting event. The supreme leader is not just a political figurehead. He is the absolute center of gravity for Iran's military, religious, and political apparatus.
So removing him changes everything.
Fundamentally, removing that node alters the command and control structure of the entire nation. It creates an immediate, highly volatile power vacuum at a moment when the state is under unprecedented external military pressure.
That sounds like a recipe for chaos.
Historically, when a highly centralized state loses its paramount leader during a kinetic conflict, the risk of unpredictable, decentralized retaliation from fractured military units spikes dramatically.
And we are already seeing the devastating footprint of those strikes across the entire region. Let's look at the casualty metrics detailed in our stack. Inside Iran, the Iranian Red Crescent Society is reporting at least 555 deaths.
And the crucial geographic metric paired with that casualty count is that strikes have impacted over 130 cities across Iran.
130 cities.
That number is highly revealing. When you have munitions impacting 130 distinct urban centers, you are no longer looking at surgical strikes on isolated border facilities or specific nuclear sites.
All right, it's much broader.
This is a systemic, nationwide suppression campaign targeting air defenses, command and control nodes, and military infrastructure across the entirety of the Iranian landmass.
The human cost is also hitting American forces. The Pentagon has officially announced that 4 American service members have been killed in the ongoing operations.
And that reality grounds this entirely. Behind the geopolitical strategy, there are immediate, irreversible losses impacting families and altering the trajectory of entire communities.
The regional casualty reports further illustrate the vast scope of this escalation. We are seeing 11 fatalities reported in Israel and 31 people killed in Lebanon.
It's spreading quickly.
Furthermore, the reports note significant collateral damage to civilian infrastructure. The intelligence specifically cites structural damage at Motahari Hospital in Tehran caused by the proximity of massive explosions nearby.
This is where we have to evaluate the long-term degradation of state functionality.
How so?
When you have strikes occurring in 130 cities and concussive blasts compromising critical infrastructure like a major metropolitan hospital, the toll extends far beyond the immediate casualty count.
Because the support systems are breaking down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are severely degrading the civilian sector's ability to survive. Emergency response networks buckle. Medical supply chains fail. The secondary effects of a missile campaign on this scale often create a rolling humanitarian crisis that outlasts the actual kinetic exchanges by years.
It is a really heavy reality to process.
Yeah.
And the diplomatic maneuvering happening on top of this violence is moving at a very aggressive pace. The statements coming out of Washington from Donald Trump outline a very specific, compressed timeline for this campaign.
The timeline is very revealing.
He stated it's always been a 4-week process. It'll take 4 weeks or less. Though the briefing notes he added the caveat that U.S. forces retain the capability to sustain operations indefinitely if required.
Putting a strict public timeline on a military operation is a highly calculated diplomatic lever. It establishes a ticking clock for both allies and adversaries.
And he paired that timeline with a massive, dual-pronged ultimatum. The transcripts show Trump calling directly for the Iranian military apparatus to surrender, offering them blanket immunity if they lay down their arms.
Right.
Simultaneously, he bypassed the government entirely and urged Iranian citizens to physically rise up against their remaining leadership.
Looking at the political chessboard, This is a clear strategy aimed at internal destabilization.
Okay.
By offering military immunity on one side and encouraging widespread civilian uprising on the other, all immediately following the death of the supreme leader, the objective is to fracture the nation from the inside out.
Pressure from all sides.
You apply overwhelming systemic kinetic pressure from the air and sea while attempting to trigger a collapse of internal security on the ground.
But looking at the official stance out of Tehran, there is absolutely no indication of a diplomatic fracture. The Iranian official Ali Larijani issued a firm confirmation that Tehran will not entertain any negotiations with Washington.
Very definitive.
His statement was an unequivocal vow of continued resistance. So you have a rigid 4-week ultimatum demanding surrender on one side and an absolute refusal to negotiate on the other.
Which practically guarantees that the remainder of this timeline will be characterized by intense, sustained violence. Both actors have publicly locked themselves into maximalist positions that leave virtually zero diplomatic off-ramps for immediate de-escalation.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because that lack of an off-ramp is causing this conflict to spill aggressively across borders. The intelligence we have shows a rapid regional contagion. This is absolutely no longer contained to the Gulf of Oman or Iranian airspace.
The geographic spread we are tracking right now is what has global defense analysts on very high alert.
Just look at the logistical nightmare unfolding in the diplomatic cables. We have reports of drone platforms targeting the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
In response, the U.S. State Department has issued an unprecedented directive urging American citizens to immediately evacuate from 15 different countries across the region, 15 sovereign nations.
It's massive.
And concurrently, we are tracking fresh airstrikes hitting metropolitan parts of Beirut, Lebanon, following immediate evacuation warnings issued by the Israel Defense Forces.
We really need to unpack what a 15-country evacuation directive actually means, because it is staggering.
It sounds impossible to manage.
Coordinating a non-combatant evacuation operation, or NEO, for just one embassy is a massive logistical hurdle. Issuing that directive across 15 allied and adversarial nations simultaneously signals that the State Department anticipates widespread, synchronized, and highly unpredictable retaliation.
They're expecting the worst.
They are essentially clearing the board of vulnerable civilian targets.
If you synthesize all of these data points, the sheer volatility is unmatched.
It is. You have the decapitation of a major state's leadership. You have asymmetric drone platforms probing embassy defenses in Saudi Arabia. You have entire naval fleets being eradicated to secure global choke points.
Yeah.
You have airstrikes systematically degrading capital cities like Beirut. And you have the largest diplomatic and civilian footprint withdrawal in modern memory. This convergence of multi-domain warfare has unequivocally pushed the Middle East into its most volatile posture in recent history.
And the briefings make it clear. Global powers are not just passively watching. They are actively bracing for the contagion to widen, deeply concerned about the cascading destabilization of allied defense postures and the immediate shockwaves hitting global energy markets.
In our deeply interconnected global architecture, a kinetic conflict of this magnitude cannot be geographically quarantined. The security and economic shockwaves are already hitting shores worldwide.
So what does this all mean? We started with a massive stack of real-time intelligence, and we've analyzed a truly staggering sequence of strategic maneuvers.
It's covered a lot of ground.
We dissected the destruction of the Shahid Bagheri, a commercial cargo hull retrofitted into a lethal 180-meter drone mothership, and the aggressive information war fought over the phantom sinking of the USS Abraham Lincoln.
Right.
We looked at the unprecedented erasure of an 11-ship Iranian naval fleet in 48 hours to secure the global economy's most vital choke point. We analyzed the profound geopolitical earthquake of the supreme leader's death, the systemic strikes across 130 Iranian cities, and the devastating civilian toll spanning from Tehran to Beirut.
That's immense.
And we evaluated the ticking 4-week clock on an exploding regional contagion that has triggered drone strikes in Riyadh and an unprecedented 15-country evacuation directive.
It is a phenomenal amount of complex strategic data to absorb, and I want to remind you, the listener, that while engaging with kinetic operations on this scale is undeniably heavy, it is absolutely essential.
Completely agree.
Understanding how these diverse mechanics interact, how a welded flight deck on a cargo ship in the Gulf of Oman directly impacts a 15-country diplomatic evacuation, is the key to seeing how modern statecraft international security, and asymmetric warfare actually function in real time.
It's all connected.
You aren't just scanning intelligence summaries, you are analyzing the real-time restructuring of global power dynamics.
It fundamentally changes how you view the map.
It truly does. And before we close the dossier on today's intelligence, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over, building entirely on the operational data we've discussed today.
Let's hear it.
We saw a slow-moving commercial vessel seamlessly transformed into a strategic, lethal drone-launching platform. We then saw an entire traditional naval fleet completely neutralized, reduced from 11 ships to 0 in exactly 48 hours.
Right.
Looking at the sheer velocity and technological reality of Operation Epic Fury, we have to ask a hard question about the future of defense procurement. Has the traditional definition of a navy become permanently obsolete?
Oh, wow.
In the face of this new era of cheap, asymmetric drone swarms and immediate, overwhelming precision strikes, are the days of building massive, multi-billion-dollar fleets to fight on the water gone forever?
That is a phenomenal strategic question to chew on and exactly why we do this. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Keep staying curious, keep seeking out the raw data, and above all, keep questioning the headlines. We'll see you next time.
Okay, one question for you. How will the destruction of Iran's drone mothership and the rising military exchanges between the US and Iran impact stability across the Middle East and the safety of international shipping routes? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.